Hey everyone, I'm Tom and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be wrapping up the month of April, and April was a really great month for me, but not so much on the reading front. I did a lot of other things outside of reading that took away from it, and we'll get into that later, but first we are going to talk about what I finished, and we are going to go ahead and start off with this bad boy. This is Traitor's Not by Janny Wirtz. There was a live discussion for this that I was unfortunately not able to be a part of, but this is book seven, seven? I think, of the Wars of Light and Shadow, book 4 of the Alliance of Light. And unfortunately, I say unfortunately, but unfortunately, this was probably my least favorite one of these books in a little while. And I think there's a couple components to that. I think the previous book is my favorite of the series, and I think there was maybe a little bit of a come down from that. And then I just felt like I don't know. There was just something that this book was keeping me maybe at arm's length a little bit. I don't want to go into too much detail. Obviously, this is super deep into a really long series. And when I say it, I didn't enjoy it as much as some of the previous ones, I still had a good time with it. I think I gave it a 3-star rating, which I know for me, that still means it's a really good book and I had a good time with it. For other people, 3-star would be kind of a negative, but not for me. I just have kind of, my own grading scale. I would still highly recommend the series. Janny Wirtz is still one of the best authors. There is all of that fun stuff that I've said multiple times. There was just something about this one that didn't work for me as well as I would have liked. And it's interesting because there's some really cool stuff in here. There's some magic stuff that gets explored that I really liked, but I think there was just some stuff towards the end with one of the main characters that just unfortunately didn't click for me the way I would have liked. And that's going to happen in a series that is this long. You're going to have books that just don't work for you as well as maybe other people or other books in the series. I'm currently, going through the Wheel of Time with It's Lit book reviews again. And it's funny because we're kind of in what people would consider the slog, right? Now, I don't think the slog really exists. But even in my favorite fantasy series of all time, it has those ups and downs. Not every book can be your favorite. And so this is just kind of reminiscent of that journey where, okay, we're super deep into this series that I'm fully committed to and I really like. This is going to be probably a top 10 series of all time for me. But that doesn't mean every single book is an absolute home run, smash hit, all of that fun stuff. So that is what I have got to say for Traitors Not. I still actually need to go back and watch that chat to see what everyone else thought about it. But if you have read Traitors Not, I would love to know what you thought down below in the comments. Next up, we have got book 2 of Red Rising, and that is Golden Sun. If you were here for what I said about Red Rising, you would know that I had a good time with it. Once again, I gave Red Rising a 3-star, but I thought that book was a little bit of a mess. I thought it was kind of all over the place. I thought there was just some stuff that didn't really make sense in world, that didn't make sense. Just, I don't know. Once again, I thought it was a messy book, but it was still fun. And I think Golden Sun was a huge step up in pretty much every single possible way. The plot is better. The story itself is better. I will say it did something that annoys me. And I have been told that's not going to be the last time it happens. So that will be an interesting thing for me to experiment with as we go on. But I just thought everything about this book was so much better. Golden Sun really started to deliver on what I thought I would get out of Red Rising. And I have been told multiple times that Red Rising, the first book, is not really indicative of the quality of the rest of the series and how much it changes as the story goes on. So I kind of knew that going in. I guess I just was ready for, I think, the second trilogy or whatever it's going to be. I think maybe it's more than 3 books at this point. After Morningstar, that is really where it would pick up, and I would kind of have to get through this first part of the story. But that just has not been the case. Golden Sun, like I said, was just a fantastic time from beginning to end, really. I think maybe there was there's a little bit of lull at the very, very start, but once the ball starts rolling, it doesn't stop. It's good political intrigue and space, maybe a little convoluted, but one thing I do appreciate about this story is it's still, even though it's not like intergalactic in the sense of a lot of other stories, there's still that time to travel, which is, for whatever random reason, is something I appreciate in my sci-fi, where we acknowledge the existence of like how big space is and how long it takes to get from point A to point B. No matter how more improved the technology is, there's still issues where, yeah, it might take a couple months to get from point A to point B. So we have time to do this kind of stuff. And I also thought one thing that was really interesting is the examination of how media and propaganda can affect people and what they think and how powerful of a tool that is. I just really enjoyed all of that. And like I said, good battles, good plot, good story. Everything about Golden Sun just was so much better than Red Rising. And I was already excited for the series, but now I'm really excited to see where it goes and some of the things that are going to happen, because this book did not end the way I thought it was going to. It really did kind of like shake what I thought was going to happen. Like if you had asked me what my predictions were, not even that what happened at the end of this book couldn't have happened in future books. I just wouldn't have expected it to happen in book 2. I would have expected it to happen later on. And maybe part of that is because this is like kind of its own trilogy, and then the next part is, I don't know exactly what happens. But so I was really blown away by that, and it kind of kept me on my toes the whole time, and I really enjoyed it. And it was definitely a slightly sad book, but that's okay. I think you need those lows to get those highs, and I'm very curious on what is going to happen in Morningstar whenever I get around to picking that up. Next up, and actually maybe going to be the last book I finish in the month of April, is Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. I read Dune a long time ago at this point, and I have always said I kind of wanted to continue on. I always just kind of kept pushing it off and pushing it off. And when I saw the Dune Part 3 trailer come out, I was like, okay, it is time. I have really got to do this. And thankfully, Dune Messiah is on the shorter side. So I finally got around to it, and I still really liked it. I gave that one a 4-star as well. So Golden Sun and that both got 4 stars from me this month. But I didn't like it nearly as much as the original Dune book. And I have heard people say that reading Dune Messiah and not also reading Children of Dune, like those are almost like one book that got split. I can kind of feel that. It's crazy that this book is as short as it is, and some of the things that happen in it happen. Especially like the ending is insane when you actually think of like what happens. And obviously, I know a lot of spoilers for Dune and some of the weird stuff that happens later on. So I guess it's not totally a surprise to me, but I didn't see the ending coming. I didn't think that's what was going to happen. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed just being back in this world. I didn't realize how much I had missed Dune, because when I think of like fantasy and sci-fi worlds that I really like, Dune's not the first one to come to mind. But getting back into Messiah, it really kind of ignited that in me again. So I wasn't ever really in a rush to continue on with Children of Dune, but I think now it's definitely going to be something I pick up this year. And maybe I will just do that. What is it, the first 6 books that Frank Herbert did before he passed away? Maybe that's something that I'll tackle this year, because this one just kind of really reignited that for me, and obviously very excited for the movies and everything. But this is more Dune, obviously. So if you like the original one, I think you should give this one a shot. It definitely is a continuation of the story. There's not like anything that I would say, like, it's funny because Dune is such like, you can really just end on Dune, but also like seeing some of the things that happen and how characters change and all that kind of stuff is also really nice. So it's, while it's not like a new favorite, Dune is really high up there for me. I think it's probably like a top 50 book of all time for me, just regular Dune. And this one is not anywhere close to that, but still very glad I read it. And it's one of those ones where I could definitely see the next couple of books never reaching the same peak as the original book, but I could see reading everything really increasing my thoughts and feelings on the series as a whole. And I could see it really kind of climbing up the list of things that I really like. So that was interesting. Obviously, don't want to spoil anything. If you haven't watched the movies, I think you should. I will say, when it comes to the movies, I am really curious on what parts they're going to keep from this, what parts they're not going to do. I haven't looked into what they're trying to cover in the movie, but I just feel like with how Dune Part 2 ended, it'd be weird to start where this book starts, because I feel like it would just be a weird transition. You'd have to kind of like hand wave some stuff. So that'll be really interesting to see how they try to, I don't want to say fix things, but align things with this book, if that's what they're even trying to do. I know the first 2 movies were somewhat book accurate. I don't want to say exactly, because there were obviously massive changes, but it felt very true to the story. But I have a feeling that maybe Messiah, or whatever they're calling it, won't be as true to the story as the first 2 parts. So that will be very interesting. And then we have got to talk about the things that I have just started and or have not gotten to yet. So unfortunately, my most anticipated book of the year, The Caretaker, I have only just started today, which is April 29th as I film this. So this is a rather short book. So depending on how much time I have to read the rest of today and tomorrow, this could still be something I end up finishing in April, though I highly doubt it. And then unfortunately, that means Wistful Ascending will be the first book I finish after that. And so maybe some stuff from my May TBR is going to get bumped a little bit, though most of those things are really short. So I kind of knew as I got towards the end of this month that reading time was running out, and so I can talk a little bit about that. So one thing is it was my fiance's birthday, so we went on a trip to New York. She's a really big theater fan, like loves musical theater and all of that stuff, has like degrees in it. That is like her jam. It's not really my thing, but she wanted to do this. And so, of course we went and had a good time. So we actually went and saw Heathers. If you guys are familiar with this is, I don't know if the musical came first or I think the movie came first with Winona Ryder in it. And I actually really had a good time with this. The further I get away from it, the more I really actually had a good time with this, which is, if you knew me, I don't really talk about this a whole lot on the channel because I stick to mostly book stuff, but musical theater and singing, not my thing whatsoever. Not that I don't like respect it or anything like that, but it's just not my thing. It's just not. But Heathers was just like the perfect combination of being a musical, not taking itself too seriously, being funny, and just like having a good story overall. So we had a really good time at that. And then the other thing we went and saw was chess. Now this one was a little bit more rough for me. Apparently in the original, I think there's maybe been some alterations of this, but for this musical, when it originally started, there was only 4 minutes of dialogue. So there was a little bit more dialogue in it this time around, but that means the rest of it was singing. And so, 2 hours into that, it was a lot. The performances were all fantastic. My fiance was telling me that like one of the people should definitely like get a Tony, just all of this kind of stuff. So it was really cool to like be able to go to New York. It was my first time going, so we stayed near Times Square. Had never been there before. Obviously, it was cool to see that. It was kind of underwhelming, but it's also just one of those places where it's cool to say you have been. To see some shows on Broadway also is super cool. And then for me in New York, getting to like go to the Empire State Building and Freedom Tower, Top of the Rock, those kinds of things are the things that I really enjoy from a trip like that. I like to go and experience things like that. So that was really awesome. That obviously took away from a lot of reading. I did read a little bit on the plane to and from, but it did just cut into that. Then the other thing that was happening kind of at the same time actually was the World's Strongest Man happened. If you don't know, I compete in strongman. I love strength sports, lifting, working out, all of that kind of stuff. So I was having to pay attention to that as well. There's not a live stream of it, so you can't watch it live. But basically, there are some strongman channels that do live, and we basically watch a spreadsheet. This year is actually probably the best year where we actually got clips from the competition itself, which was great. But so it's just like 10 events, hours of, an hour to 2, depending on the event, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, for each event. So, I'm listening to that instead of reading and stuff. So I knew that was all kind of happening, but it was all very much worth it. And I had a really great time doing all of that. Obviously going on that trip with my fiance was great. And it was nice to get a break from work and all of that stuff. But like I said, I definitely knew that was going to affect all of my reading towards the end of the month. So we'll see. Wistful Ascending and The Caretaker are going to be next up. If you watched my TBR, all of that is still on the plan. I think May has the possibility of being one of my best reading months of the year. One, because I'm reading a lot of short stuff. Two, a lot of the NFL stuff. So the draft also happened. I forgot about that. So I'm paying attention to the drafts, listening to podcasts and stuff about the draft because I'm not actually getting to watch it because it was also happening while World's Strongest Man was happening, while it was my fiance's birthday. All of this stuff happened at the same time. And so then I'm trying to catch up on my sports stuff. So reading just really got bumped, but had a lot of fun doing it all. Actually, wow, I almost completely forgot. Author of Ill is the Fate, Mercy, Tears of the Fallen, Chance Dillon, we met up with him in New York. Didn't take a picture. He took us to this really great sushi place that was super good. I hadn't had sushi like that before. It was all just like hand rolled stuff, and it was really good. So it was cool to see him. And while I'm just kind of rambling off random stuff, congratulations to Jake over at Nerd Level Rising on his PhD defense. That was super cool. He sent a couple of us a link to it, so we got to watch him, and it was also about like fitness and stuff. So it was really cool. Some of it definitely went over my head, but just like getting to listen to some of these like super smart people talk about like reps in reserve and all of this stuff was really cool. So yeah, and then today, the Wheel of Tom, which is, I mentioned a little bit earlier, is what we're going through the Wheel of Time with It's Lit book reviews, Jesse and Andrew. You can check that out as well. So it has just been like a great month for so many reasons. That was not reading, but that doesn't mean the reading was bad. And it just means I'm going to try to read even more in May. I hope you had a great April. Definitely let me know what you read, or whatever you did. I mean, I just talked about a bunch of random stuff that wasn't reading down below in the comments, or as always, you can check out the Discord that is linked in the description. But that is going to be all for me, and remember to read what you want when you want.